Hello and welcome to Fantastic AV Voyage, a spontaneously fresh podcast about all things AV and not so much AV from two AV insiders. My name is Richard Mitchell. My co-host for today is Michael Hooper. Hooper, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
You are welcome. So we made it to 2024. We have survived. It is a new year, a new us, quarter one. We are now officially, as of the recording, a third of the way through. How you feeling so far?
I'm feeling fantastic. Wait, a third of the way through
This quarter.
the quarter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess the first month's already gone.
So will you be
Time
employed in 2 more months? We'll find out.
We'll find out. Stay tuned.
We'll find out. So for this episode, we were going to talk about some trends. AV in the AM had a fantastic kind of topic where they were talking a little bit about trends and some other things that people are going to be seeing, or maybe they've hit critical mass within the year. And I was going to ask you, what are some of the things that you think are going to kind of hit critical mass in 2024? Or maybe a flop. What's going to flop in 2024? What's the thing that everyone's talking about and it's not going to come to be?
It's called the internet. I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's not taking off. No one's using it.
Flash in the pan. I agree.
Flash in the pan.
All going back to rotary phones is really where my passion is. The push button ones, I never felt satisfied with that, but the rotary one, that's really where you knew you were making a call.
You could tell it was doing the dialing for you, you know?
Like tapping it out in Morse code,
AI.
right? Yeah, that's really where we need to go.
AI.
AI.
Didn't we just do a show about AI?
We may have.
It was a while ago, but I think we talked about AI. Everybody's using AI. We're using AI.
But do you think there will be like a significant shift within this year, or are we just going to see micro progressions of what's kind of already out there?
Both. I think there will be a significant shift, but not in the way that you and I and maybe some other people envisioned and hoped. We're not going to be able to have the all-powerful AI that we think is very doable, which in reality probably is. It's just how are we going to deploy that sort of technology? I think what we're going to see is probably, it's a safe bet to say that Dante Video is going to explode whenever it hits the market. I really hope that it doesn't fail because simply put, you'll have, tons of users that are just going to adopt it right away because the manufacturers out there, like the one that employs us, they have to bake in their own technology or they have to get it from somebody else. And if somebody else is taking on that liability to say, hey, this technology works, and then all you're doing is encoding and decoding, great. Then the transport protocol is taken care of. That's the third party. They have it tested. They've got it down. It works every time as long as you're using their software to control it or whatever that might be. So fine. Give me, one extra layer of software that I need to control it. As long as it works on everything, cool.
Agreed. And I think also seeing that, there's some folks out there that have kind of figured this out. They've spent the time to make sure that it functions the way that it needs to function. Some people are super critical of Dante AV because it's really broken into multiple kind of categories. But I think the categories are necessary to have a video protocol that is adopted by a wide swath of the AV industry, because we're not just talking about, permanently installed configurations like classrooms is kind of where my mind naturally gravitates toward. But we're also talking about, higher end video production environments where, they're looking at, 422 video, 444 video. They want that high bandwidth, robust, deep bit rate. And they need different protocols. They need different requirements for their environment. So having something that's been well thought out for both of those environments, and hopefully is somewhat cross-compatible so that if you've got a lower-end device that would be feeding into a higher-end device, that they would function at a rudimentary level. I think that's a good thing as compared to where we are right now, which is there are a lot of proprietary options out there that do not work together at all with each other. So It's going to be, there's going to be some interesting things out there, like with the Dante environment. Some people make amazing Dante environments. Maybe one of our employers that could be said for them. And then there's going to be other Dante devices out there that are much more
That's right.
cost
The user
effective.
experience is going to be different.
Yeah.
Even though it may be the same, transport protocol, the user experience or the experience of ownership of that appliance that does whatever it is that you need it to do is going to be slightly different because they're coming from different manufacturers that have, different goals and different mission statements for whatever it is that they're doing.
Agreed. Also, Dante AV, the video part of it is so new that I think it's going to take a little while just for it to gain momentum to where you've got a breadth of hardware that is compatible with one another. And hopefully it ultimately is compatible with each other. We're just going to have to see. We're going to have to see. So, but AI, back to AI, that's what the question was. Where else do you see AI being used in AV? Because I think people are quick to say like, oh, the chat devices, yeah, that makes sense. But how does it move into all aspects of AV?
Man, just talking about the classroom, what I just have been hearing through various and assorted channels and probably going down the YouTube rabbit hole, there's a lot of AI technology out there in education that could simply help our overall agenda, which is in higher education to have more highly educated people, right? So the AI that I'm seeing that is using not only like facial recognition, but also body recognition can simply say, oh, in your classroom right now, 75% is disengaged from the lecture. They're not paying attention. They're on their phones. They're doing something else. Their eyes aren't focused on like whatever it is that, is being presented. All of that can be read off of cameras, and that analytics can be actually fed back to you in real time. How you can use that information is going to be a little bit harder because, what do you do? That's up to the lecturer or the person at the front that's leading the discussion, right? So there's a lot of technology there that we could be using simply to like overcome engagement.
All right.
But I don't know. I mean, let's see where it goes. What are you thinking?
I'm fascinated by the idea of like attention tracking, because this isn't a brand new thing, but the idea of kind of coalescing that with other technologies like metrics associated with meeting attentiveness. I think humans are incredibly smart on how we can trick and manipulate systems. So will we get really great at just staring right at our webcams without any thought? Or are we going to buy devices like the, I think it's Elgato that just came out with a prompter thing. Am I going to be buying a prompter for my desk so that I can be looking as though I am geez, Richard, you are incredibly focused on this meeting topic about the inner workings of the TCP/IP stack and how it relates to audio over the network, when in fact I am just staring at a football game that nobody is the wiser other than me thoroughly in. Gee, what did I just say that Richard just did like a fist pump? Like what just happened there?
All of that is already happening though, isn't it?
It could be.
I say the kids, the people that, want to have attention divided, they're going to have their attention divided, and they're just going to get better at showing that it's not divided. Do you know how many people I see driving around like glued to their phones?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're making smarter cars because people are getting dumber.
Agreed. But I think the reason that people would be getting the teleprompter type devices is because it's the gamification of an AI where, hey, we're looking at promoting Hooper because Richard, he's only got a 79% engagement score. Hooper's got an 84. 84, that's a rock solid B. Richard's fallen into the C category. So we're just going to move him. But applying that to, it's not just your C-suite anymore. It could be applied to your entire organization, where how much do they contribute? I worry about these things because, let's be honest, most organizations, there are a large group of very motivated folks. Do we want to encourage all thoughts and ideas in all of our meetings? Maybe somebody doesn't have, a valuable thing to contribute within a specific meeting on a very narrow topic. Maybe they shouldn't be like raising their hand and saying, that sounds fascinating. Tell me more about that. No, it's okay. It's okay. Some people don't need to contribute as much, depending upon the nature of the meeting. So would it negatively impact us if we had to, we had to say something? You had to ask a question in every single meeting.
I think that would negatively impact us.
But,
you and I both know that, we're constantly in meetings where you go around the horn, right? You have to hear from everybody. And some people just shouldn't have that platform. They should simply be allowed to say, pass.
Or I love a meeting where somebody just says, thanks for the meeting. Appreciate everyone here. Nothing to contribute today. That is fine. It is perfectly fine for somebody to say, today I don't have something to contribute in a significant way. We should move it along. I'm okay with that, but I don't like the idea of an AI being used to manipulate employees to artificially seem as though they're contributing. And I could see wild ideas of like being given an engagement quota of, you just didn't seem as engaged as the person down, the hall. And honestly, as a person that can turn on and off his type A, I would thrive in an environment where, oh, you want more hand gestures? I'll double my hand gestures for whatever meeting it is, just so that I get the highest score. Maybe I need to talk louder so I've got more energy within a meeting. Gee, I hate a world where an AI is doing something like that to gamify engagement. And I don't think AI is going to be the Terminator of everything out there. I don't see that happening.
Yet. The singularity will come.
Down the road. It'll be down the road a little ways.
It's like 28 years away.
Exactly. But I can also see there being subtle nudges. I can also see AI where, hey, maybe I'm a bit of an introvert and I'm trying to, build myself up a little bit and be a little more engaging. Maybe I just get a little AI that I download onto my desktop that kind of flashes up saying like Clippy, that's like bling. Have you asked an engaging question recently? And it's like, oh.
Wait, do you not have that? I think that might be in Teams, maybe Zoom. I'm not sure which one it was, but I came across it one time. It wasn't Clippy, but it was in the spirit of Clippy. It was simply a coach. And as you were giving your presentation, I did this for one of my quarterly business reviews that you may have been on. And I just noticed that a little caption popped up on my presentation that said I may be speaking too fast and that I should slow down. And sometimes I get excited and I start talking fast, especially whenever it comes to, stuff that I like. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, a few seconds later, it says that I haven't asked an engaging conversation question yet. And I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe I should stop and ask the audience a question to see if they would like to participate in this. I just thought that was the most amazing thing because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like real time. It's happening right in front of me. And it's doing it in a way that is not ultimately distracting because, I was giving a presentation that, I could have been reading, a script or I could just be telling you what I'm doing either way. But I did notice it and I was like, that's really interesting. So if we could do that in the classroom, cool, great. We're already doing it on the virtual meeting space that you and I are in either now or wherever you're seeing us from.
Oh, I can see it more in K through 12 where it's engagement, like having an engagement quota where, hey, the students are tuned out. Maybe you're operating at a 62. We need to pump up your numbers. And maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing, especially, I was originally going to be a K through 12 teacher, but then I discovered, nope, no, thank you. Because I I didn't want to be that person that had to pump up a bunch of people every single day, multiple times a day. That's not me. That's not that. No. So I couldn't imagine there being another kind of mechanism for them to kind of peer into some of these learning spaces. But ultimately, it may be a good thing. Maybe it would reward excellent teachers for being excellent. And hey, you're the teacher that when we brought in a different teacher, they were not scoring very well. The students weren't very engaged. We brought you in, bam.
I gotta say, and this is just business jargon, but if it's measured, it's managed.
Yeah.
And I feel like 100%, as soon as you start putting a number associated with whatever it might be, and we used engagement a lot, your engagement score is number, right?
Yeah.
Once you have that number, now everything is managed towards getting the highest number or getting the best number, showing the most improvement on that number. And it's always just about the number.
Yeah.
And it's really not about the education anymore. It's
right.
about the engagement.
And
right?
I think if it's used as like one metric with many metrics, it could be a net positive, but I could also see it being the number. Your engagement number is lower, and you've got to change it.
We know lower engagement leads to lower test scores, and lower test scores mean we don't get as much state funding. And yeah.
Also, good luck.
Around.
The gym teacher, they're 100. Wow, your engagement score is through the roof. Geez, calculus teacher, you're terrible at your job. You need to pump up those kids. You need to get them super excited. Why?
Have you thought about storytelling?
With logarithmic storytelling? Have you looked into that? But yeah, I see. I think in the short term we're going to start seeing like mechanisms to take people that want to be AV technicians and ramp them up on a very personal, private level very quickly, where I can start asking questions like, why do I put this block in front of that block? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Based on all the knowledge bases that are out there, where it's able to pick all this information. Not only can it deconstruct the language or the words that you're using to find the appropriate technical term for what you're looking for,
yes.
But it may be able to also kind of curate a training that is specifically designed for you, the individual. I love the idea of where AI could take us in that regard, where it's like, I'm really fascinated in multi-channel audio and the manipulation of that in large venue spaces. It's something I love. It is a niche of a niche of a niche. And, if you go through the traditional, it's going to take forever to figure all that out. It'd be great if you had somebody that was kind of like that little, the little gnome on your shoulder, kind of walking you through, like, these are the areas that you need to work. They have infinite amount of time so that they can work with you whenever you're ready to do it. And hey, why not? I'm excited about something.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
All right. Switching gears just briefly. Augmented reality, virtual reality. Go.
AR, VR.
Go.
Augmented reality, virtual reality. All right. So isn't the virtual reality is the Oculus, right? You are completely closed off. You are transported to a new space in virtual reality. You know, it's going to school in Ready Player One, which I'm sure everybody saw the movie. Go read the book if you didn't. The book.
Oh, they made a book out of it. Cool. Cool.
Great book. So the kids, they go to school in virtual reality, which is absolutely awesome. Augmented reality, I think, is a bit more difficult, right?
Agreed.
So where I'm seeing this in higher education is probably like the application of looking through the lens of your camera phone, and your camera phone is adding the in-depth information. If you were looking for specific plumbing, right, and you're following all these pipes, but your phone can actually tell you, hey, this is the hot water, that's the cold water, this is the steam, or whatever it might be. It could actually keep all of that labeled through as you're just scanning over it, right? So, yeah, AR, VR, kind of gimmicky right now. I'm interested to see where this works its way through to us in what we would consider commercial instead of niche or pro AV sort of stuff. We're kind of commercial. And we're kind of the last ones that get the real solid technology. And right now, I think that AV or VR is still kind of the consumer market right now, and it hasn't made sort of that drift over to commercial. Do you see it a different way?
I don't. I think virtual reality is the easier of the options out there. I think it hasn't hit critical mass with enough people having these headsets and having the environments to really penetrate the education market specifically. It's also incredibly cost prohibitive. So there's kind of an equitability concern that it's just not going to work in certain environments. Also, I hate to tell people this, but it is not cool looking to have a big helmet on your head. It's I and
What? Gotta
maybe
get my virtual reality goggles on.
well maybe oh there you go,
Well,
fantastic. I love the glasses, but I just don't see people walking around with these headsets on, even if it's an augmented kind of reality situation. I don't. I can see some niche locations. Like I fly a lot. I would love a headset that I could watch a 180-inch display, watch movies that way. I would love to play games on it when I'm on an airplane, on a bus, on a train. I could see, really immersive entertainment scenarios. But once you kind of venture outside of the entertainment component, I can envision locations where, hey, I missed a class. I'm going to put my goggles on. I get to sit at the front of the class as the professor's moving forward with the presentation or the demonstration that they're going through. And maybe I want to operate it at 110% speed or 120% speed because I can. I could see some advantages to that. I would definitely feel immersed in a classroom or a learning environment where, this is all going on. But, I also have privacy concerns. What if I'm the student that just so happens to be tapping their pencil and I'm annoying the person that's wearing the VR goggles that watches the classroom the following day, and like, a month later, somebody's like, thanks a lot for completely distracting me throughout that entire class. And it's like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Or, you expect a certain level of privacy. And right now with like lecture capture systems, yeah, they hear a question that you might ask, or they might see the back of your head, or they might see you engaging to a certain degree, but there's not the fidelity of what I would consider most VR environments would be. And I could see that being a bit of a problem. So there's a bit of a privacy and, I don't know, cringe factor that needs to be ironed out. Maybe society will just move along and it's going to be normal. No, everything's kind of recorded in this kind of 3D environment. But I can definitely see some amazing ways to interact. I love the idea of having a more meaningful kind of Zoom room environment, but we're wearing goggles. But I just can't get past, the cost of it. And again, the not cool factor is going to be relevant. And again, call me
the
crazy,
goggles have
but
just never taken off. Google Glass or whatever, it never really worked. Now, I'll tell you, like, yeah, there's some goggle things that I want, that they put a little heads-up display in your lens for when you're swimming, which it's really hard to look at your watch when you're swimming.
Yeah.
If you want to know like your yardage or your speed or something like that. So things like that, yeah, absolutely. But the rest of the time, I mean, like goggles, come on. I don't think that we're going to be wanting to like walk around with these goggles or sit down and everybody put your goggles on. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am, because, I just feel like, no, the technology is very close to you, but it's not necessarily like on you. As I say that, wearable technology is actually all the rage. We just keep it to our wrist right now.
well, I keep waiting for, we all have these phones and they're pretty powerful. Like, why aren't we connecting these helmets to our phones and let the phone do all the heavy lifting of what the device can do? And, or, offload some of the heavy lifting to our phones. And it just doesn't seem to be a thing. And I kept waiting, and maybe Apple will come up with this someday, but it's like, really, I just need a shell of a laptop where I just slide my phone in, and it is the computer. All I need is a larger screen and a keyboard, and my phone is more than powerful enough for my mobile computing. And I don't, of course, why isn't this happening? Well, it is. I think there are a couple of kind of niche groups that are doing this with phones right now, but because they want to sell us two or three of these devices. They don't want to sell one thing, they want to sell three things. So I think at some point they're going to have to figure out, like, how do we merge some of this so that it's not such a heavy lift for people to kind of get into it.
Gosh. All right. So continuing down the path that we're already on, right? So you've got your computing device, right? And which is also your interface.
Right.
So what's to say that this has to be the computing device? When this gets small enough to wear it here, what does your interface look like? So if you can have, the processor that you have in your phone or the phone that you're going to have 10 years from now fit into the technology that you're wearing on your wrist, fit into that size, does your interface change? Like, are we going to, start, oh, here's my phone. Just hold up your hand and a little hologram image that you can only see from the front, or maybe it's tailored specifically to your glasses or whatever. Oh, there we go. Goggles.
There we are. No,
now we're at goggles. That's the interface, right?
I think we need to go back to the big brick phones and the big
Zach
antenna. Yeah. And,
yeah.
Or like the big box that you would put in a car and then
a car phone.
I think we've gone too far. But to your point, like the idea that, our phone could get down to, and it's here. I mean, right now you can buy.
It is already here. Like, do you have a separate phone number for your phone or for your watch?
No.
Is your watch its own standalone device?
I'm not Daddy Warbucks here. Like, I buy the cheap phone because I know or the cheap watch because I know I'm gonna break it at some point. I'm also, a bit of a minimalist when I want to be, and like the idea of me receiving phone calls on my phone when I know I'm going to have my, or when I would receive phone calls on my watch, when I know I'm going to have my phone with me anyway. Why would I?
I am totally not a parent, but I did see some parents that they have whatever the latest iWatch, Apple Watch is. Their kids walking around with these latest Apple Watches. I'm like, hey, that's fantastic. And I didn't question it. I didn't judge it. I saw it in action. They weren't there at the house, but the mom parent needed to have their children back. And so she just calls their watches and says, you need to come home right now. And they're in the neighborhood somewhere. But the thing is, she can quickly just look at her interface and be like, oh, well, Bobby is at Billy's house and Susie's at, Marie's house.
Yeah.
And, oh, there they are. Call them, they answer, they're on their way back home. They don't know how to get home. Look, there's directions. It's all there. It's such a weird thing because these kids are going to grow up and, the ideas was the parent didn't want to give their child the interface device,
right,
a phone at that young age. And there's just kind of this drift of like what that interface device is going to be like.
Well, I'm fascinated. I'm young enough to use these devices, but old enough to remember a more simple time, I will say. And
simple time.
Well, when I'm
Grandpa, tell us about it.
When I'm strolling across campus, I see a lot of students now like FaceTiming and walking around, having a very engaging conversation with their phone in front of them.
Yeah.
I mocked them until I found myself doing it one day with you, where I'm walking across the campus, or I can't remember where I was, doing the exact same thing, because why wouldn't I? Like, it's a much more engaging experience. I can see what you're talking about if you're showing something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You mock people until you find yourself doing it. So I've come full circle with that, but it's just another technology, another way of engaging with people. I'm just not sure the virtual reality will be what we think it is. And honestly, I think it's a bit of a bust right now, but I think it'll come back at a certain point when the cost of some of these devices starts crashing to the point where it's a little more approachable, where they can subsidize these devices to where, somebody with, a middle class type person can afford one reasonably well. And I also think the features need to get to the point where they can justify it. If I don't have to buy a monitor and I can do my homework on a device that I put on my head and I can do some other things, that's when I think it's going to tip to the point where, yeah, it's going to be more of a commodity type device. And that's when I think we'll start seeing real adoption. But I think we're still
Yeah.
a ways away from that.
I don't know. I mean,
Have we beat this topic to death yet or no? Keep going.
I could keep going if you want me to keep going about VR, AR, but I feel like maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah.
Dang, I wanted to say one more thing.
Absolutely.
We're already in VR. We're so heavily invested in VR. Maybe not you and I, because we grew up with, like, I don't know what you grew up with, Pong. I grew up with Super Mario Brothers.
Mine was,
the thing is, like,
I can't even think of a newer game console. That's how old I am. Like, Atari Jaguar? Is that cool? No, that's not cool. That's not cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, that, right? Since I was in college, the advent of like the network, the LAN parties, where everybody's playing like Counter-Strike, or, I mean, we were doing this in high school, so whatever. But it was whenever Xbox started making like Halo and these games where like you could play with your friends, and as long as everybody's connected to the internet, right? The internet, you guys can all just meet. And you guys can like just hang out. And that's what you're really doing. You're just hanging out with your friends in VR.
Right.
So while, yeah, you might be playing Call of Duty or some other game where there is an objective to do a thing, a lot of times you're just hanging out and you're just in VR with your friends. And that experience, a lot of people now are starting to become of the age where that's just what they do, man.
Yeah.
That's just part of who they are. It's just, oh, it's Saturday. What are you doing? Man, we got this tournament. We're going to play here. We're going to do this. And it is whatever it is.
Oh,
but,
I'm playing with my kids, Minecraft on we're all in one world. We're building things together. It's on a home server.
To each other, right?
Yeah. It's
like you're collaborating
yeah.
in real time.
And
in a virtual environment. That's just VR.
I don't have to be in the room for them to be like collaboratively working together. Honestly, my son is very proficient at reading, and I want to attribute some of it to Minecraft. He learned he needed to figure out how to spell, and he just started reading because he wanted to do certain things in that environment. And hey, if he's learning and enjoying himself, it's a win-win, especially if it's a very safe, fun, it's like Legos for your mind. They love it. And
yes.
Why wouldn't they? I think there's obviously you need that kinesthetic tactile learning that kids do, but you can virtualize some of it, and I think it's going to be all right. All right, shifting gears just a little bit.
Good chunk.
AV over IP in 2024. What are we looking at here? Because I think, and I'm specific to the higher education market because that's kind of our zone. What do you think's going to be changing in 2024, and what's going to differentiate what was before and what is ahead?
VGA forever.
Thank God. All right, next topic.
Mic drop. We're done.
All done.
Get on out of here. I don't know. I honestly don't know what AV over IP is going to show us in 2024. I thought that I knew everything there was to know about AV over IP 4 years ago in 2020. Yeah. And 4 years before that, I thought that I knew everything whenever Biamp was launching to Sarah Lux. I was like, oh man, this is great. All I got to do is, watch this video, learn this thing. I already happen to know about IT networking because that's where I came from. So yeah, let's do this. AV over IP, not a big deal. And then, everybody wanted to talk about it for a few months, and then it just kind of didn't really go anywhere for a few years, it seemed like. And it did really seem like there was one technology that kind of just said, no, we're just the king of doing this. And so everybody's going to do this. And there were a few kind of outliers over there that were saying, oh, no, we're going to build it like this so that this one manufacturer doesn't make all the chipsets for everybody. This is more of a network open standard type of thing. And, now you and I, we were talking about Dante video. And look, I mean, it may have come full circle. I don't know. I don't know where things are going. I like the idea of there's just encoders and decoders. The network is the matrix. There's no middle bloatware anymore that you have to have that really isn't doing anything more than the network could have already done for you. But I know what happens whenever you start to congest a network with a lot of video traffic, because video traffic is a hog of bandwidth, and it will absolutely slow things down to a crawl. And it is so frustrating when you can't do that little simple thing that you just, oh, that's easy. Why is this network down? Or why is this network slow? You know, it's never really down. It's always just congested and slow. And then that's a bad user experience. And few people actually do associate that with the correct maybe appliance or technology that is causing the issues. So where I think it's going in 2024, I don't know, hopefully better. Hopefully we figure out, look, we are analog creatures. We're always going to be analog creatures. The middle is always going to be digital. Where our company that employs us exists is that convergence, the A to D or the D to A, right? So whatever the A to D convergence is, that's the bottleneck. That's the slowdown, right? So whatever we can do to make that faster and also take up less bandwidth to shoot it across the network, and then that network transmission, man, I don't know. I wish I could tell you that the NIC card in your laptop is different than the NIC card in mine. I know that because you're a Mac and I'm on a PC, but we're still using the same internet. We're still talking to each other, you know? So it doesn't have to be that we use the exact same encoder and decoder. I mean, right now it kind of has to be that way, right?
Right.
But it would be nice if we could simply just have like a standard, and I know how ridiculous that sounds, right? But yes, if we just had one open source sort of standard for everything relating to AV over IP video that we could all work with, that'd be great. Are we going to get there? Heck no.
Yeah.
Not even close.
I would say I think 2024 is going to be the year where we're going to start seeing more broad adoption by institutions that are, you know, they are probably a little risk averse. Like the folks that didn't want to, I don't want to say waste, but they didn't want to gamble the money on a new technology, AV over IP. I think those early adopters, the, hey, let's roll the dice and let's see how this works. Oh, it's working well for us. Those people are familiar with AV over IP. And, you know, some of them rolled the dice on little projects, some did on big projects, but I think most of them are comfortable with AV over IP, whether it's, you know, X manufacturer, Z manufacturer, they're kind of there.
Sure.
I think it's getting to the point now where
it's
the bulk of universities are now starting to look at AV over IP going, maybe we do it in a hybrid approach where, yes, we want the advantages of AV over IP, but maybe we still build our traditional systems so that they're robust enough, because no two university networks are identical. You know, one university, you can set your watch by the consistency of the experience. In the next one, there are routine outages, or, you know, routine, I would say maybe the uptime's like 99.8, which is not fantastic, you know, in somewhat frequent kind of outages. Those are not going to be the places where AV over IP is going to work well, unless they're sidecarring their entire AV over IP network. And I think a lot of universities are in a situation where their networking people aren't necessarily their best friends. And I'm not saying they're enemies, but they're not their best friends. They're not the ones that are willing to use special networks, boxes to get this AV over IP to function the way that it needs to function. They don't want to hand over the keys to an AV person. God bless an AV person having the keys to the network. Gross. So those are the environments. They're going to have a very difficult time making this work. But I think there are a number of other environments that are about to make the leap into AV over IP where they're ready. They've been doing their homework as to where it's worked really well, where it hasn't worked so well. And they're going to be dipping their toes in 2024 as new projects come online. They're going to start evaluating. Maybe this is still an HD-based T room, but maybe we put a couple of encoders in it so that we can feed it into the rest of the building. But I think those are the ones I think they're they've gotten to the point where they know the technology is solid enough for the vast majority of their spaces, and they're finally getting to the point where their technical expertise is to the point where they feel comfortable deploying it. I think that's going to be the big thing for 2024. It's not going to be the exception or the come check out this AV over IP room. It's going to be more the people that drive the Toyota pickup trucks that, it's getting into that zone where it's more of a utility and less of an oddity. So I think we're there. So it should be a great year for AV over IP. I think we're going to get a lot of people that have kind of been sitting on the sidelines, seeing who will win the football game, and now they're seeing which of the teams actually works best for them, and they're kind of digging into it from there. That's my grand prediction. Yeah,
it's an interesting take on it. I always kind of figured that by now, right, a decade ago, by now we would have more robust network infrastructure. I thought everybody would it's going to be fiber from here to there to there to here, and I was skewed by one of my first professional jobs in the industry was at the AT&T Performing Arts Center, and we had fiber multi-mode and single mode run throughout the building. Some technology consultant was looking out for us. I don't know, because it was on my network, the AV network, and I rarely ever used it, but occasionally I would have to. I can remember specifically the opera here, the opera company, wanted to do a simulcast to the big football stadium, which is like 20 miles away from the opera house.
Right.
And it wanted to be live, and they wanted it to be, absolutely beautiful 4K 60 resolution. And, they had all these cameras set up that they got from, the local news station that they hired to come in and shoot this production for us so that we could simulcast it out there, because there's going to be a whole audience to see it, right? There was no one to see it. Actually, I have no idea. There could have been. I was at the Opera House. I wasn't at the football stadium. But the short version of it is we had a very robust dark fiber network everywhere, just meaning that we could pick up and plug in and use whatever we wanted almost anywhere. And that was great around our facility and our venue,
right?
Because that's what we needed. Seems like now where we spend all of our time in the education world or in the corporate world too, that network just is not being put in, or maybe it is being put in, but it's very hard to upgrade it once it's there. So we're going into these institutions that, when was Duke founded? You worked for Duke. When did
it's actually their 100-year anniversary this year.
The centennial.
Which is a surprise to a lot of people. They assume Duke has been around for, 200 plus years, when in fact it was not.
Okay, so in 1924, they said, let's start a university right here on these grounds, and they did.
It's a little more. Right? It's a little more deep. It was actually here. Let's start a university over here. Let's move it to Durham. So, right in the town of Trinity is actually where Duke University started, but they moved to Durham at a point in the past. So, yeah.
But either way, the university is large. It is already there. It is going to be very, very difficult for anybody at that university to say, you know what, all this copper, let's upgrade it. Let's get fiber everywhere. It's just not going to happen anytime in the very real near future. So in that very real and near future, which is, I guess, 2024 is what we're talking about, AV over IP, the technology that is going to, supersede everyone else will be simply the one that can do everything that everybody else is doing, but take the lowest amount of bandwidth to do it. And also, gosh, it's got to hit a certain price point to be a viable option.
It's got to, I think it's got to hit a security threshold. It's got to hit, it's got to check there's
so
10
many
boxes.
boxes it has to check for it to succeed, which is why we have been talking about this technology for almost 10 years. I mean, the A over IP, we've been doing this forever. Right. I can't tell you. I mean, I got started in this industry because I had a networking degree, and the venue had a CobraNet system. And
CobraNet for life. Agree.
Great. 100%. I owe everything to CobraNet.
Well, I think we're also at a point where, why is it if I buy a Dell computer and it's got an RJ45 plug in the back of it, why can't I just plug that in and get a video signal coming out of it that would feed into a projector? Like, why are we not there yet? And
Big video.
I mean, there's a lot of right. Of course, Richard, that's not going to happen. You would have to have some kind of a chipset that may do the compression, but I think that's the thing. Like the idea of us, we haven't gotten to the point where it's just you just plug anything into anything and it's going to work. It's more nuanced, more complex than that. But with Dante with audio, we're kind of there. We can plug in kind of. I can get my computer, and if I've got the right kind of chipset, then yeah, it's going to be fully compatible with Dante audio. But I don't see that with video currently, and maybe that's something that's going to be changing in the not so distant future. But video's much more bandwidth hungry. So I get that it's more complex, but it's kind of disappointing that we are where we're at right now, and there doesn't really seem to be a great ideas coalescing around like a more universal AV over IP solution that is somewhat non-proprietary in nature and
Cobranet.
Yeah, I think we all need to go back to CobraNet. And unfortunately, why don't we have cool names associated with our audio or video? Like a Serpent
I'm
Net.
Gonna give you all right, I'm gonna give you the opportunity. You come up with a name. The new AV over IP industry-wide standard. It is completely open source and everybody's gonna use it. It's absolutely free. You already have it. You just have to turn it on.
MongooseNet. MongooseNet. Yeah, because that's a mouthful.
MongooseNet.
I love it. I think that would be a beautiful name for something that is open source and readily available for all the hardware manufacturers to use right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that's done it. We thank everyone. We've done it again. We've wasted a good bit of your time, and I'm sure there are, as Chris Decter says routinely, I'm sure there were quite a few people screaming at their car radios while they were listening to this, going, "These two don't know the first thing about higher education or AV over IP solutions."
Never heard of it.
It is, and I can also hear people saying, "Keep your day jobs." We will do that. But thank you for listening, and feel free to send us messages if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.